Have you ever heard that those who fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it? That was a quote by Winston Churchill. But the aunties have our own take on all of this too. So come on, let's go. Find out what fresh history is all about.
Hey, Auntie.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to We Are Your Aunties. Hi, aunties. How are you? We want to welcome Auntie Genoa back to the show. Hi, sweetie. How are you?
Yes.
Yay, she's
Glad
back.
to be back. I missed y'all.
Better than ever. We missed you too. And we want to welcome our audience. Thank you for coming. And we also want to welcome in Black History Month.
Yes.
Black History Week, Month, Life. Black History Life, and get our life with our Black history. So we have a very, very special show planned for you today. We are going to take a look a little bit deeper into the history of America for Black Americans, but in specific, we want to look at the godfather of Black history and why he did what he did in terms of forming Black History Month, and just a little bit more about the life of Carter G. Woodson. And Carter G. Woodson, actually his middle name is Godwin, Godwin, Carter Godwin Woodson. And the other aunties will have some other things to share with you as well. We won't give up all the surprises at the beginning. So how's everybody feeling?
Oh, wonderful. Excited.
Good.
You guys look great. I'm going to have to
Oh,
say.
so do you. So do
I
you.
love that pattern, that African. I love it.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump right into this because we have a lot to talk about today, and we would invite you viewers to like, subscribe, and share right now. Like, subscribe, share, and hit that notification bell so that you know every time we drop a new video or come on live. And also we want to invite you to participate. Please ask your questions. Please jump in with your comments. This is what keeps aunties alive and keeps us going with the information and keeps it flowing as a two-way street, not just us teaching, but also your participation. So with that said, we have an animated clip this morning. Hi, Jacqueline. Good morning to you too. You look beautiful from where you are in that beautiful photo. Oh, but you're always stunning. So listen, we're going to go ahead and jump in with a clip that we found. And I want to start with a fact. I always said, and as a matter of fact, I am at fault for thinking this way. I always believed that the reason that Black History Month was in February is because there was some power that be, right? Some they somewhere that decided that Black History Month should be in February. Well, what I discovered in my research of Carter G. Woodson's life is that he himself, the godfather of Black History Month, decided that it should be in February because he wanted to honor two men. The first was Frederick Douglass, whose birthday is in January, and also Abraham Lincoln, the so-called father of emancipation. So both of their birthdays are in February, and that's why it's in February. I even put it in my book, like, how dare they give us the shortest month of the year? So in my new edition of Healing the Wounds of American Slavery, I will correct that fact. And I stand corrected. And we all should stand corrected because this man went through a lot. He went through a lot, hell and high water, right? To bring this month to us in this celebration. And that's what it is today, a celebration. So let's start, DY, with the animated clip that we found that gives us some more facts about the father of Black history, Carter G. Woodson.
In 1926, Carter G. Woodson lobbied schools and organizations to institute a Black History Week. 50 years later, Black History Week was officially established as Black History Month. This wasn't an easy feat. In the days of Carter G. Woodson, the United Daughters of the Confederacy, women relatives of ex-Confederate soldiers, made it their mission to write, review, and censor textbooks. The UDC encouraged librarians to burn any book that did not align with pro-Confederate ideals. The UDC also worked hard to promote specific textbooks. One of these textbooks was titled The History of the United States. It was written by Waddy Thompson, a plantation owner and South Carolina legislator. The textbook defended slavery and the Ku Klux Klan. It was widely used in schools throughout the South and still is considered a valuable historical account to this day. While men and women like Waddy Thompson were shaping mainstream U.S. history, Black history was being completely left out of American books. Carter knew what was at stake and made it his mission to educate the world about Black history. Growing up, Carter longed to be in school, but his family depended on him to help pay bills. Carter spent his teenage years working in West Virginia coal mines. After Carter finished his shift in the mines, he would study long into the night, learning high school topics on his own. When he was 20 years old, Carter finally began high school. He finished in 2 years. Carter continued his education, earning multiple degrees, and eventually became the second Black American to obtain a doctorate degree from Harvard University. After earning his degrees, Carter committed himself to the field of African American history. Every year, Carter would pay his dues to the American Historical Association, but year after year, the association refused to allow Carter to attend the conferences because he was Black. However, Carter was not deterred. Instead, he founded the Association for the Study of African American Life and History, which is active to this day. Carter also wrote over a dozen books, including The Miseducation of the Negro, which has become required reading at many colleges and universities. In February 1926, Carter began a special program called Negro History Week. The purpose of this week was to encourage the study of African American history. Carter chose February to honor the birth months of Frederick Douglass and President Abraham Lincoln. Eventually, this program expanded and became what we know today as Black History Month. Carter G. Woodson's many accomplishments are remembered through the University of Virginia's Carter G. Woodson's Institute for African American and African Studies and the Dr. Carter G. Woodson African American Museum in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Beautiful.
Wow.
Thanks, UI. Great morning, Arlene. How are you doing today? We're having such a wonderful celebration right now. We're feeling so good and so up about Black history today. So I just wanted to bring to light a little bit more about his education because, first of all, he was the second Black American man. That's how I choose to address it. Black American man to graduate from Harvard with a degree. And the first was W.E.B. Du Bois. So, I think we don't talk enough about his background in education because also, although he did write Miseducation of the Negro, he also wrote 12 other books. And I had no idea. And I'm going to absolutely go and research what those books are so that I can read some of them. So I just wanted to really pay homage to. You can find links to all of our videos that we show today in our description on YouTube. Yay! Thanks, DY.
Thanks, DY.
Awesome.
So I wanted to really pay homage to Carter G. Woodson. We would not have a Black History Month. A lot of people complain that it's the shortest month of the year, but we wouldn't even have that if it wasn't for this brother's lifelong commitment to teach Black history. And we know that there's opposition right now and opposers to teaching Black history. And we're going to get a little bit more into that as we go through our program today. And so one of the things I want us to walk away with is to remember that we are Black history. And if we don't tell our own stories and we don't spread our own narrative among our next generations, they won't know. And so I want to go right into, we're going to go right. See, I'm so used to going in a certain order in our segments. We're going to go into Rose's Gold so that she can tell us a little bit more about where these efforts to curb Black history come from, where they stem from. Go right ahead. Rose's Gold.
Oh, good morning. I want to talk about UDC, which is United Daughters of Confederacy. And that was an organization mentioned in the clip that we had earlier. And I just want to just pinpoint a little bit of history regarding them. Caroline Meriwether Goodlett was the founder. And then actually the co-founder was Anna Mitchell Davenport. And what started Caroline to find this organization was because her brother went into war, the Civil War, and he lost his life. And so she was determined to make sure that the soldiers was taken care of and different things like that. So they created the UDC, which is the United Daughters of the Confederacy, and they did sewing, they helped with the wounded, and also they mentioned in the clip before that they looked over books and they banned it, which ones they didn't want their children looking at. So I just want to talk about briefly the book, a couple of books by Garth Williams called The Rabbit's Wedding. Was banned, and it's just a book about a white rabbit, a black rabbit wanting to marry a white rabbit, or vice versa. And he had, I think he was the type of author that wrote in children's books because he wanted to voice his opinion. Because he wrote another book. He illustrated the book that Margaret Brown wrote regarding the Mr. Dog. And Mr. Dog owned himself. So I feel like he was doing some subtleties there. But according to UDC, they were saying that they erected monuments all around the South, which was soldiers that did not, that wanted to keep slavery going, that agreed with slavery is the best thing that the South can have. And these racist people wanted to keep this. That's why the UDC was created. Another reason they wanted to keep history their interpretation instead of letting all history speak for itself. So I'm just going to read a little bit about how things started with the film Birth of a Nation. According to Atlanta and History Center, The Birth of the Nation is a film that started a lot of people united together, getting united to just erase history of Black people. So The Birth of the Nation's success and wide distribution increased national interest in the post-Civil War Klan. In Atlanta, the film served as an inspiration and a guide for leaders of the two early 20th century Atlanta organizations and close connections to Stone Mountain, the modern Ku Klux Klan, and United Daughters of Confederacy. So they had strong ties to the Ku Klux Klan, and they wanted to keep their heritage alive, and the United Daughters of UDC was definitely a part of that. And then so a group in the South referred as the United Daughters of Confederacy felt that control of the information for their children learning, that's the reason why they felt that they as parents had the right to remove books and only wants certain books on the shelf. DY, can you roll that clip that I have, please?
Listen to how this textbook describes slavery.
The master often had a barbecue or a picnic for his slaves. Then they had a great frolic. Even while working in the cotton fields, they sang songs. The beat of the music and the richness of their voices made work seem light.
Yikes, that's from History of Georgia, a textbook published in 1954 that was taught across junior high schools in Georgia for decades. That sort of language is part of an intellectual movement called the Lost Cause, a distorted version of American Civil War history that's been prevalent in the South for a long time. It took shape soon after the defeat of the Confederate States in the war, when Southern historians like Edward Pollard and former Confederate General Jubal Early started preserving the South's perspective through their writings. They framed the Confederate cause as a heroic defense of the Southern way of life against the overwhelming forces in the North. That narrative has a few basic tenets: the glorification of Confederate soldiers who died for a cause they believed in, the belief that slavery was a benevolent institution, and maybe most importantly, that slavery was not the root cause of the war. The Lost Cause is one of the most notoriously effective efforts to rewrite history, and it was done by the losing side. So how did it become so deeply rooted in Southern memory? Blame the United Daughters of the Confederacy. The UDC was founded in Nashville in 1894 to preserve Confederate culture for generations to come. The women who made up the group descended from elite antebellum families, and they used their social and political clout to spread the pro-Southern version of the war as real history. You've probably seen their efforts to honor the Confederacy, but maybe you didn't know it was the UDC. They're the ones who covered the Southern landscape with memorials for Confederate leaders and soldiers. They used their fundraising and lobbying skills to pressure local governments into erecting monuments in prominent public spaces like courthouses and state capitals.
Installed here next to the state capitol by the United Daughters of the Confederacy.
The United Daughters of the Confederacy donated this memorial to the city back in the 30s.
They put them along roadsides and in parks. Any place that was remotely relevant to the Confederacy was memorialized. By the early 20th century, the UDC had 100,000 members and chapters spread all over the country, but mostly in former Confederate states. And just to give you an idea of how effective they were, they successfully lobbied for a Confederate memorial in Arlington National Cemetery, which U.S. President Woodrow Wilson proudly unveiled to a cheering crowd. Now that's influence, right?
Monuments are the least of what they did.
What?
I mean, they are the most visible and tangible, but the work with children was far more influential.
It turns out a central UDC objective is shaping how children think about the war and their Southern heritage. One of their most powerful tools? Textbooks. Take a look at this pamphlet called A Measuring Rod for Textbooks. It was written by the illustrious Southern historian Miss Mildred Rutherford, an educator, orator, and author of Southern history textbooks. She's also very pro-slavery. The pamphlet announced the formation of a textbook review committee featuring prominent Southerners like 5 former Confederate generals. This group was committed to spreading the truths of Confederate history, so they instructed school boards to reject any textbooks that did not accord full justice to the South.
Yeah, and you know what? They're here today still, thriving. And I went online on a website to try to inquire, membership and just about their organization. And you need a password to get into it, so you can't just get the information freely. And then they go by the bloodline. They say you can be a member if your bloodline is approved by their organization. And I know that some of us, a lot was definitely a part of the history.
That is excellent coverage. Absolutely excellent coverage. And I'm so excited about getting to the root of what's happening right now with the banning of books. Because if we look at their main purpose, especially when they first started out, right, it was to take care of the troops, the Confederacy troops who were fighting the Union troops who wanted to end slavery. And that, even that history goes a little bit deeper than what we see on the surface, right? Yes. But in the end, their purpose was to write, review, and censor Black history. So revisionist history is their whole cause. And we have Arlene in, who said that she promises she's learned more about Black history since she's lived in Montgomery, Alabama, than anywhere else she's ever lived. Which is interesting because the Southern states make sure that Black history is censored. So it's interesting that she's still learning it, even though she's in one of the southernmost states. But I wanted to get into Auntie Genoa's segment because these segments all connect today. So we start with the father of Black History Month, right, which was Negro History Week, expanded 50 years later into Black History Month. And then we move into what's happening today in terms of squelching Carter G. Woodson's mission, which is to spread Black history all over, not just the country, but the world. We go into the United Daughters of, what is it? I don't even want to remember that. United Daughters of the Confederacy, whose job was to further squelch it. And now we want to come up into modern day. What's happening right now? Because we see that there is definitely a trail. There's definitely a segue into what's happening in Florida right now with Governor DeSantis and the banning of certain Black books. Now, we're not going to say that Governor DeSantis has a monopoly on this movement, but we do know that it basically was targeted to start there. So before any further ado, I would like to introduce to you Genoa's Gems. You're on mute, Genoa.
Okay, sorry about that. Good morning, fam. This came in hot and triggering, as if Black folks didn't have enough to contend with. Now this. DY, could you play that video?
Florida's new education standards is intensifying after Governor Ron DeSantis signed a bill called the Stop Woke Act last year. The changes include teaching middle schoolers that some enslaved people actually benefited from slavery because it taught them skills. Nancy Cordes is following this at the White House. Nancy, good morning.
Good morning, Wendy. You know, this debate may have started in Florida, but it has now landed squarely in the middle of the presidential race.
I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis tried to distance himself from the curriculum controversy, but it didn't work.
I didn't do it, and I'm not involved in it, are not the words of leadership.
Florida's new history teaching guidelines, approved last week, stem from a 2022 law Governor DeSantis called the Stop Woke Act.
Governor DeSantis started this fire with the bill that he signed.
The new standards say Florida students should be taught about the harsh conditions slaves endured, but also about how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
That comment drew a swift rebuke from fellow Republican presidential candidate Will Hurd, who tweeted, "Slavery wasn't a jobs program that taught beneficial skills. It was literally dehumanizing." NAACP President Derek Johnson.
We all must stand together as a nation to ensure we don't find ourselves going backwards, that we stand united as a country and not try to remake history.
Two of the authors of the guidelines say they proudly stand behind them and that they were, quote, developed using a methodical process within our work group.
They want to replace history with lies.
The nation's first Black and Asian American vice president traveled to Florida Friday to condemn the new standards in person.
I am deeply concerned. Because let's be clear, I do believe this is not only about the state of Florida. There is a national agenda afoot.
Yeah, and there you go. Now, the governor, he's newly elected, he's young and agenda ready, and has already come out swinging against the advanced placement level for African American studies classes. And it matters not that there are AP classes for the European, for the German, and for the Chinese. The one for the Black American is deemed objectionable. Why? It stays in line with the continued marginalization marginalization of certain people groups, while giving a political talking point as he eyes the next career platform. There's talk of him running for president. And it also targets the generations of our current young people who have already experienced the decline of standards and morality among our people. Almost non-existent everyday heroes that model what Black excellence looks like. For example, husbands that provide, protect, and love their wives and their children. Now, two of the co-writers on the Woke Act, which is Drs. William B. Allen and Dr. Frances Presley Rice, would be considered elders, taking in consideration their ages and their careers, was on board with the agenda that I feel doesn't serve the Black community that has and still is a marginalized people. Now, the featured tag in this 40-page document, which is on that video, is how slaves develop skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. That's like telling a trafficked person that they develop skills that they can apply for their own benefit, or any type of trauma that any people group has experienced, and telling them whatever skills they did while they were doing that, they can use it for their benefit. Now, I know that sounds extreme, but this is so is this statement from the signed document of 2023, of which Governor DeSantis and the two co-writers from our community are so proud. This is a blatant attempt to hide and water down the atrocities of which this country was founded. When the youth come out and say, "Why does this matter? Slavery was over long ago." My answer is, it matters because we are still living in the social construct created for us long ago. It matters because it still affects us and all those who are not us come into contact with us. The anti-woke agenda in Florida is indoctrination at its finest. Now, he's saying he doesn't want to be indoctrinated, but he's working to indoctrinate the whole country with this anti-woke agenda. So I don't know.
Excellent coverage, Auntie Genoa. I really especially like why you explain why it's so important that we have our Black history under our belt. And the name of that document is Florida State's Academic Standards Benchmark Clarifications, in which the main quote that comes out of that document that people are contending is how slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, when the truth is that our African ancestors who came to America came with those skill sets, and they enhanced the skill sets of those who had stolen them and brought them to this so-called new world. I also wanted to go back really quickly and just hit on one point about the United Daughters for the Confederacy, and that is to bring that historical context into the current cultural construct. Have you ever heard of a Karen? Somebody who is into everybody else, every other Black person's business, and trying to talk about marginalizing, trying to physically marginalize our space, our personal space, and those situations that the Karens bring about could literally have someone killed. And that is exactly what was happening in slavery. So like Auntie Genoa said, the construct has changed, but it's just moved to another time and space. We're still, in some sense, in that virtual slavery construct, plantation. I also wanted to bring up a couple of things. Well, maybe I should just move into Pages Pearls. I have a lot to say. Let's move into Pages Pearls. So we don't just want to bring the issues and the problems of Black American life to the surface and to the forefront in this conversation, but we also want to bring some solutions, what we can do moving forward. They want to burn the textbooks, just as the Daughters of the Confederacy did so many years ago. They want to put forth their monuments to overshadow our achievements and who we are in this country as a roadblock to understanding who we really are. They want to change the narrative and do revisionist history so that we never know who we are. I'll tell you one thing. This generation may have Google and may have the internet, but there's so much misinformation. There's so much fake news in those capacities that I thought of what we do have. I was thinking about what do we have that really gives us a strong sense of our own history. So you have to come off of the internet. Surprise. And I remember these books. Does anybody remember these books? If you don't remember these books, it's okay, because we come from different generations. But this book is from the Negro Heritage Library catalog. And growing up, we had these books. And I'll tell you what, you can Google now, but back then this was our Google. And so it tells us about so many of our history, so many of our heroes, so much of our history. It tells us a lot. So if you can find these books, and you can now, you can still find these books. These are on eBay. They're on just various different bookstores. And well, you'd have to really go to rare bookstores and rare book collectors to find these. My 92-year-old second mother has a whole collection of these for me, which I'll be collecting when I go back to Sacramento. There is an entire book on the life of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement. This one in particular is The Winding Road to Freedom. So it's after the Emancipation Proclamation, right? But I just wanted to start to bring us some answers. That's one answer, is to go and get these books, collect them, guard them with your life, and pass them down to the next generation. Have circles, family circles. You can even do it on Zoom, where you read the books, you talk about the history, you answer the questions. One of the things that myself and the aunties were talking about in preparation for this show is, that back in the day, there used to be, barbershop talks and beauty shop talks. And so rather than talking about the gossip, the latest celebrities and what they're doing, why not have specific sessions, specific talks about these things, about our Black history, where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going, where we can go because we understand the roots and the foundation of our history. There's a question that deserves a very close look. And that is, what am I doing to keep Black history alive? All of us are pointing at ourselves here. What am I personally doing to keep Black history alive? This show is one of the things. So I also wanted to say that, there used to be, the aunties and I were talking again, and we talked about quilting circles. And if you don't know what that is, that's a group of women, and, in some cases men, but more specifically women, would sit around and they would bring their materials and they would quilt. They would just all create one quilt together or several quilts, but they would just sit around and quilt. But that wasn't the absolute object of their gathering. The absolute object of their gathering was to find out what's happening with our community, to talk about history, past history, present history, and to talk about future plans. Who needs to go to college? What funds need to be raised in order for us to continue to promote who we are? And another thing is griots. That's us. We're the storytellers now. We need to tell what we remember from the books, from the encyclopedias, from our history, our actual history that we experience in our own families and our own communities. I come from the community in the Bay Area, Oakland, California specifically, and that's where Huey P. Newton started the Black Panthers. And I know a lot about that history personally and through study and academics. And so to bring that to the forefront on any platform, at every platform that I find myself, I thought, for example, that Carter G. Woodson had only written one book, Miseducation of the Negro, and it's an important book. It's so important that it is absolute critical study It's critical study in universities at this point in the curriculum. That's one of the things. Gaining sustenance from just day-to-day conversations, and bringing to the forefront why we are doing the things that we're doing right now. What are the wounds that we're carrying from American slavery that we can look at up close and personal in a real examination, and begin to look at my own personal fears, my own personal jealousies and insecurities, my own instances of masking and pretending. What can I look at and what can I bring to bear in the lives of those young people that God has placed in front of me to talk to from day to day? And not to be afraid of those conversations, not to steer away from those conversations, but to literally go as deeply as we might possibly go. I wanted to also bring to point to the forefront that I'm going to be on CBN. That's going to be February 26th. I'll make an appearance on CBN. I'll be talking about the book. I'll be talking about those things then. So it's wherever I find myself, I will be talking about our Black history, how that affected us then, how it affects us now, and where I believe we should go from here. So let's have a conversation with our audience and with each other about some of the things that we feel that we can bring to the forefront to bear in maintaining our Black history and in spreading it where it needs to go among our next generations. So, ladies.
You know what? I think, we like to, get together, break bread. And I think that's a perfect opportunity to do that, to teach our children, and then each other, different things, because we love to break bread. We like to have, when we get together and we create that family unit, we just love that. So I think that's one of a good idea that we could do.
Right. And it doesn't have to be a dry conversation. Like, let's just sit here and crack this book open. There are moments for that. But for example, we had an incredible event at Auntie Rose's where we did karaoke. And so it was the older generation and the younger generation. And it was interesting how many of our songs they knew. It was interesting how many of their songs we did not know. I mean, I kind of knew some, but it just gave us an opportunity to talk about our Black artists and where they were coming from when they wrote that song, how the lyrics are different than they were then, and why. It was an incredible opportunity. So it doesn't always have to just be a dry, let's have a Black history conversation. Although my nieces and nephews love that. They love that. They are just waiting for the books to be cracked open and to get a better understanding, because they understand that helps them in their own individual lives. We have Jacqueline Yvonne here, who said that she certainly uses her poetry to share the Black experience. And she is a brand new minted poet laureate for Vallejo, California. Congratulations. You'll have to make us aware of your upcoming events so we can post those. And and I've read some of her stuff and it's really incredible. So Auntie Genoa, what are some of your ideas?
Well, the thing is, especially I know that as a parent, I was more worried about certain things that I wasn't worried about when the grandchildren came along. I was more free. And so I let them be free to be themselves. And so we have to, when we see stuff, because, people make you, people try to make you, don't be telling my child, ooh, ah, ooh, ah, ooh, and everything like that. And so, but the thing is, we do our children a disservice when we don't teach them. And one of the main things is manners. And when my children was young, I was like, if you're going to be bad, you're going to have some manners. Please, thank you, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, no, sir. You're going to at least know all that stuff. You know what I'm saying? But my children were good children. People loved them. And we spent a lot of time together. When we went to the park, go to the and I didn't just sit on a bench. I got down in the sand and played with them. We built castles. We played games. So what I'm saying is, play with your children.
That's
Play
so
with them.
good. Spending
Play.
that quality time. And they love that. And the thing about it is, once you're engaged in an activity, then you can share anything and they're right there listening. It's like you've got a captive audience. I know one of my girlfriends was telling me that she used to use the time in the car to talk to her children about certain things, about family relations, about just their own lives, and to gather more information from them, see what's on their minds, what are they thinking about, who are they communicating with and interacting with during their day. That time is super important. Even, and as Auntie Rose was saying, even around the dinner table. I know, for example, my mother, she did not allow us to take our plate into other parts of the house to eat.
No.
We had to eat together. And I can remember almost every conversation that we had. My brothers are super intelligent. My mother, very, very, very intelligent, very bright, and very aware. And so that's where I get it from. It's from those conversations, and not just at my own family's house, but at the extended family as well. So yeah, breaking bread together is very, very important. You're right. So, and the barbershop, it's interesting too. I just want to bring this point up because it's just an observation that I've made. I've sat in the barbershop occasionally with my brothers, with my husband, with, other relatives, male relatives. And the men are talking about some important stuff. They're talking about politics. They're talking about religion. If there's a female there, they're often very respectful and they won't get into talking up under our clothes and all that kind of stuff. They are talking about, work and what's important in their work. Then conversely, in the beauty shop, I hear a lot of talk about celebrities. I hear a lot of gossip. I hear a lot of who shot John, who did what. And that's not all the time. That's not all the time. But what do you think is that making that distinction between the men and the women?
I think we're not as close or as connected as we used to be on a certain level. Because back in the day, we knew all we really had was each other. And with all this anti-woke stuff, we're more open to other people and mistrustful of our own, when the people that we're actually trusting is the ones that will harm us quicker. I'm not trying to be funny, but that's what it is.
Yeah, it's true. And not everyone. We don't want to throw a blanket over it. But yeah, I hear your point, is that we aren't, in some cases, we aren't as close as we used to be.
Right.
We aren't. And so how can we bring that back?
You know what I make a point of, when I see another sister, or in my case, I call them daughter. And I make a point of addressing them, acknowledging them, and, have a good day. And if they're looking beautiful, oh, that is such a beautiful top. I give them respect. And a lot of that, we don't do that a lot. I'm not going to say, but I make a point of it. But I'm not going to say that we don't. But I think what we need to do is address those situations with our young people. What I want to go back to, what I was thinking earlier about the poetry. With the spoken word is another thing too, where we connect to each other, and they bring up their rich history and their experiences and our experiences. So I think if we come together with the art, and then acknowledging, that nod, or that thing that we do. We know what we do. And I make a point of telling her or telling him, brother, you look nice, or, that you're wearing that suit,
I love the way you talk about the art. Yeah, I'm sorry. I love the way you talk about the arts. Seeing the play. Go see the play. There are a lot of good Black plays out, and if you go to Gold Star, you can get a discount on theater tickets. Goldstar.com. You can get a discount on theater tickets. I also wanted to say that I think part of it, well, first of all, let's get Jermel's comment in here. He says barbershops are an information haven. That was the original Google and Ask Jeeves, and it's absolutely true. One of the things I thought about when we were talking is the individualism. There's so much, I gotta get this bag on my own. I gotta hustle and grind. I don't trust anybody. And it's just this kind of, isolation. That's what it really is when you go into individualism. I just, feel like I have to make it on my own type of thing. And nobody makes it on their own.
Nobody.
No. And in that rare case when they do, they are the loneliest person on the face of the earth.
That's true.
And so I think, getting back to more of the unity, and the only way, I'm going to tell you right now, the only way for us to unify is to identify the wounds that we're carrying that keep us from uniting with each other, like crabs in a bucket, the jealousy, the masking and pretending, being property, the entertainers and the athletes and others who are under contract in this construct, right? To perform in a certain way because you're literally someone else's property in that respect. So being that that's true, there are several athletes who will go and mentor children, who will go and speak at schools, who will give money for education and scholarships and all those types of things. And when they open up and let us know who they really are, it makes a huge difference. And we could do the same. We don't have to be celebrities, athletes, or entertainers. We could do this. Is be vulnerable, be transparent with what happened to me as a child, what happened to me when I was a teenager, what happened to me in my 20s, what my life was like that changed me in a negative or positive way, and give them segues and that information that can help their trajectory totally change. For example, if someone is in foster care, I've never been in foster care, but I can connect them with someone that I know is a professional and expert in what that looks like, how to transition from that system into real life as they're emancipated, that kind of thing. Just an example, but that's what it is. It's that unification. And in order to reach that unification, again, I'll say it because I can't say it enough. We have to look at ourselves. What's happening with me that's isolating me, giving me a fear of rejection, and abandonment, and those issues that I need to be healed in so that I can connect with others. It's so, so, so important, because if I don't, then the information I'm bringing is I'm just bringing poison to interject into someone else's life rather than something healthy and fresh. Absolutely. Did you know?
Yeah, well, while you were speaking, I thought about this saying, and I found it to be true. When they say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And the thing is, if we're able to show empathy one to another, not just because I know that even with my children when they were growing up, it's not that I had experiences, but I didn't drape them in it. If something came up that would help them, I see them going down the road, and I had an experience that I came out of that would help them, I would share it and then try to give them steps out of whatever it is that they're going through. Because sometimes you overwhelm people. Have enough trauma in their life. They don't need to be overwhelmed with yours.
Absolutely. That is so good.
That's the reason why I stress this book. It is so important because to read and know what happened to us. But I can't wait for the movie. I can't wait for the play, because I recognize that some people are visual, and I'm one of them. And that's why the audio book is so good. So that'll help. That's another thing that's an eye opener. And we just need to get on board with this. I mean, don't let this pass you by.
Don't sleep on it. Don't sleep on
the
it.
rules of American slavery. It's so important.
Yeah. So upcoming, I'm on CBN on February 26th. I am on KBLA again on February 24th. Mache's oh my God, Mache Duffy is her name, Mache Duffy's show. And then I have a course coming up, which is so important. I hope you're listening. If you're listening, say I'm listening.
I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Awesome. So important. It's called Write Now, WRITE now. It is a 2-day course where I and an extraordinary writing coach and editor take our clients through 2 days in order to create a strong foundation, their first draft for their book, because all of us have a story. Every last one of us. And that's going to be on April 12th through the 13th, limited seating, and 3 of the seats are already filled. So you want to put a number 1 down below, put a number 1 in the comments, and we will reach out to you and get you on a list to get you more information, because it's already been formed. The first launch announcement is going out on Monday. And I'll tell you what, when it goes out on Monday, people have been waiting. This is backed by popular demand. We give you all the love. We hold your hand. We look at your manuscript with you. We give you real time feedback as you're working with us through the process. It is just extraordinary. And that is on April 13th and 14th. And then the online courses for Healing the Wounds of American Slavery. Talk about the visual, right? Talk about the getting into, the roots of this thing is being uploaded now as we speak. And so there's just a lot coming down the pipeline. Obviously, play, film, television, all that stuff is also coming in. And so good, Arlene. Okay, good. So she says that she's still here, and I assume that's about right now. And yeah, it does. It is really great. It not only sounds great, it is great. It's amazing what we're moving into with all of this information. And so I just want to thank everyone for being here. Ask you to click, subscribe, like, and definitely hit that notification bell right now so that every time we're getting ready to hit the internet to bring you more amazing information. We want y'all to know we love you. We really do. That's why we show up here every Saturday. It's not out of anything else but our love for our people, for God's people, and to continue to bring you information that we believe is going to make a difference in your life. So on that note, aunties, you have any last words for the people?
Yes, we love you. Ain't nothing you can do about it.
Nothing.
Well, only thing I'm going to say is be good to each other and love each other.
Please do. And as we always say, we are your aunties. Yes. You can tell us anything, but there's a way to say everything. Hit like, subscribe, and comment, and definitely hit that notification bell. And until next time, know that if nobody else told you they love you today, we did. Bye.
Bye.